Good morning to all of you and welcome to Baiju's exam prep. So I am Basavaraj. So we'll be continuing the disaster management, what we initiated, right? Hope I am audible as well as visible to you all. Yes, it is the second class. It is the second class. So yesterday there was a holiday on occasion of Ram Navami, and before that there was some problem with some technical issue with the internet and all. So that's why there were some problem with that. So hence, rather than having a difficulty in taking up the classes, we scheduled it as a postpone. So today we'll be starting from where we have left. So hope I am audible as well as visible to you all. Now, one thing is, don't get much stressed. If you have seen the results of yesterday, it's a preparation of at least 2 years or 3 years where they prepare with cool, calm, and composed mind, right? And don't accumulate huge content. Keep your content limited. And rather than reading 10 books, read the content 10 times and write them. That will make you perfection in answering any type of difficult questions. So don't get much stress. Keep yourself cool, calm, and composed. Organize your studies. The more you organize, the more it will be. It is something like this. Unorganized sounds will always create disturbances. We refer that as noise. When you organize the noise, then it will create something which can be a music. I'm repeating. When we organize the noise, then that will give something called as music. So it is about organizing whatever is there with you in a proper rhythm. So don't get much stress. You keep yourself in a plan that 2 years or somewhere 3 years that will help you to crack your UPSC examination. You should not surprise if you have done your work systematically. You may crack within 2 years also. But at least you have to have that patience of 3 years of preparation so that the systematic approach will help you to lead the success. And again, I'm telling you, these exams are not like Group C exams. You should have patience. You should have calm and composed mind. You should understand the things carefully. You should concentrate on understanding. And that is where the success rates increases. Right? Don't accumulate huge content. Whatever is there with you, which is suitable for that, read that and then revise that often and often. Read that, revise that, write that, and always update with your current affairs. Now, we were discussing about the floods. In the floods, I told that it is a submergence of a new land or increase in the water level of already submerged land. So that is referred as definition of the flood. Now, this is due to temporary accumulation of water, maybe because of heavy rainfall or maybe because of the floods due to the rivers. And in the year 2005, they found that the reason for the floods in Mumbai is different from what we see in other parts of the world or the coastal areas. And they classified that as urban floods. So from 2007, a new zone was added to the existing 3 zones. We refer that as urban floods. Why? Because urban floods are totally different from what we get or what we refer them as rural floods. Now, it's a basic common sense. In the urban, the density is more, the vulnerability is very high. Why? Because slums are there. The people are having large amount of economic disparities, large amount of industries, softwares will be there. So hence the vulnerability profile in the context of India with reference to urban is different what you see in the rural areas. Plus the economic activities in the urban areas are totally different from what you get in the rural areas. And the reason for urban floods is also completely different from what we see in the context of rural areas. So that's what we studied yesterday. And apart from that, we discussed the reasons for the urban floods. And these all are your geography based and also your current affairs based. So these are the reasons for the floods, which we discussed yesterday. So when you're writing mains, if you mention 5, 6 of these also, that is more than sufficient. Now, next we move on to understand the impact of the floods. Impact means consequences of the floods. The first one is it will affect the agricultural land. Now, which agricultural land we are talking? The coastal areas. So when we talk about the coastal areas, in the east coast we have the deltas. So in the coastal areas, whenever the floods takes place, so these floods, they add saline water to the agricultural field. So it increases the salinity. And because of salinity, the fertility of the soil decreases. Fertility decreases. So that is in the coastal areas. Now, second, what happens in the areas where the coastals are not there? So whenever floods are there, the crops will submerge. So due to the floods, the submergence of crops will be there. And whenever there is submergence of crops are there, it will affect the yield. Right. Plus, in the context of India, where the land holdings are very small, and as the land holdings are small, many farmers depend on livestock resources. So what are livestock resources? Cattle, buffaloes, and other animals. So these livestock are also affected by the floods. So hence, we always find there is a huge loss whenever the floods takes place. Salinity, submergence, effect on the livestock resources. Then, loss of life and property. So when there is a submergence of the land, or if you see the floods in the coastal areas, we always find there is injuries, deaths, which are always seen. Plus, we find the industries and many other infrastructures, they get damaged, right? So it will provide large amount of socio-economic losses, including the large buildings, like industries, or somewhat when we say certain software activities which are being done, or small scale industries which are working there. So it will affect these industries, manufacturing, etc. Now, what about the physical infrastructure? So physical infrastructures, apart from buildings, roads, railways, etc. You can add hospitals also to that. So these physical infrastructures, when they get damaged, then it will affect the relief measures. It will have a huge effect on relief measures, relief and rescue. So the ambulances may not reach there, fire service team may not reach there, doctors may not reach there. We cannot move on directly from rural to urban areas because the roadways are blocked. Food may not reach there. Medicinal facilities may not reach there. So we say critical facilities are shortage, and that leads to more amount of deaths. So this will affect the critical services. Critical services are affected, which increases the losses. Then whenever floods are there, we always talk about three terms: displacement, resettlement, and rehabilitation. And I told you yesterday, that is in the first class, and today also, rehabilitation means you have to provide them livelihood. It means employment opportunities where they can do the activities and raise money for their food. So livelihood is very, very important, right? So they have to get some type of economic activities, either it may be in the form of agriculture or any type of labor work. So this livelihood can provide them food, and it can also provide them something which is called as roti and kapda. Then settlement is something which provide them accommodation, a house for them where they can stay during that. Plus, whenever floods are there, large group of peoples or villages are displaced from one region to another region. So this displacement, resettlement, and rehabilitation, if it is not done effectively, then they can create huge losses. So all these three: displacement, resettlement, and rehabilitation, all these three should be very important in the context. See, when we say roti and kapda, roti means food and kapda means the clothes which are required. And to get clothes and to get food, you need money, and that money can be raised only when you have employment opportunities. We refer that as rehabilitation, right? So three things are always important in the context: one is the home, second one is food, and third one is the clothes. Then disease. So when the floods are there, the water will be stagnant, and this stagnant water can create large amount of vector borne disease like malaria, dengue, etc. So large amount of vector borne disease will be there. Example, malaria, right? So they will create huge impact on the local people. Then environmental impact. When the submergence is there, it will affect large amount of the ecosystems there, like corals are affected, mangroves are affected, right? So all such ecosystems which are very sensitive are affected by the impact of the floods. So please remember these impacts of the floods in the context of any country, and this is with reference to India. Now, once you know the impacts, then we move on to understand urban flood management, how we have to manage the urban floods. The first one is coordinating with all the agencies. See, mangroves are affected because of when the floods are there, large amount of pollutants can spread in that areas. And whenever there is a submergence for a longer period of a time, that fresh water will affect the mangroves. Coordination with all the agencies. Now here when we talk about agencies means it is about police, army, doctors, NGOs, etc. So when there is a proper coordination with all these agencies, then effective management can be done. Which can rescue that. Police means traffic police, army, these people who are involved there. And generally when we talk about the special forces which are deployed during the disasters, we refer them as the National Disaster Response Force, a specialized force which are involved there. National Disaster Response Force. We'll discuss that later. What is NDRF? They are very specialized one. They are very well versed in first aids, and they are having all amount of awareness with reference to the activities associated there. So they are very well trained. So proper coordination is very, very important. Then forecasting. awareness and communication. These are very, very important things. And this is something called as early warning system. And this early warning system should be very effective. It should be very effective so that people can prepare in the short period of a time, which will help them to prepare in short time and make arrangement for the survival. So forecasting, awareness and communication, and that should be very effective one. Very effective one. Then mapping of urban areas. Now when we do the mapping of urban areas, so it gives a data of which areas are more vulnerable for the floods and where they can make settlements. So this will help for planning in the sense, in the urban planning we always talk about making which area is feasible for planting the trees and where the settlements are not allowed. So it will help in planning for regulating or restricting the settlements. If that area is always submerged by the water during a particular season, then the urban authority will release the order that this particular area is not allowed for settlements. So something we refer that as zonation or zoning area. So that particular zone area, they will not allow any type of settlements. So they will release the warnings that there will be a probability of more amount of submergence. So it is where regulating or restricting the settlements in that areas. Plus, this also helps the urban areas to make the resource development, like where the lakes can be created, where the ponds can be created, where afforestation can be done. So it helps them for planning afforestation, that is growing more trees or restoring the lakes, restoring water bodies. These all are parts of the urban planning. Then pre-monsoon desiltation. Desiltation means removing of the debris and plastics. Desiltation means removing silt and plastics from drainage system. Right. So when we remove the silts, that is debris which are thrown, then that will make the deep water system and the water will not be stagnant. So removing the siltation which has been deposited there. Then proper infrastructure. So planned infrastructure should be there, which will make the natural flow of water, which should not become an obstacle, which should make the natural flow. Natural flow is maintained. So these infrastructure should not become an obstacle. They should not become an obstacle. Plus, we should always make the infrastructures which are eco-friendly. Eco-friendly infrastructures. For example, whenever the roads are constructed, we should make sure that permeability should be increased there. It means it should allow the water to enter down. Example, permeability should be increased. Water can be increased there. Now, this can be done by using the blocks called as eco blocks, etc. Which will allow the water to percolate downward. So when the water percolates downward, accumulation of water will not be there. So you should increase the permeability of water. So there are two important characteristics, porosity and permeability. Porosity means water absorbing capacity. Permeability means allowing the water to pass. Now in the urban infrastructure, when we say concrete roads are there, It will not allow the water to move downward. So permeability is almost all zero. And if you increase the permeability, the accumulation of water will be moved downward. So hence, we should be focusing on proper infrastructure. Then portable pump sets. So this portable pump sets will make the water to pump out from the residential area. Small pump sets, which helps to pump out water outside from residence. That is, many flats are there which are constructed in the low land areas. So accumulation of water will be there. If you use a pump set, so that pump set will make the water to move out of that area into a drainage system. Right. Now, when we say natural flow means they should not act as a barrier for the flow of water during rainy season. So when we construct any bridges, if it does not have a proper engineering plan, then the accumulation of water will be there. They should take construction in the slope gradient. They should take the construction where it should make the movement of the water hassle-free without having any type of obstacle. Then chlorinated or boiled water, so that it should not affect the stagnant water. So it is about the stagnant water, and also the disease which should not be spreading. Because generally whenever floods are there, we don't have clean water. There will be a shortage of water, there will be a shortage of food. So clean, safe food and boiled water are very, very important. Then sprinkle insecticide in the stagnant water so that the vector-borne disease are controlled. Then emergency services, rescue and rehabilitation. So without that, the casualties will be increasing. So please remember these things, which we refer them as the urban flood management. So if UPSC asks questions on urban flood management, you should remember these. Now, apart from that, they may ask on models which are being seen. Now, one model which is always in the news is something which we refer them as the sponge city concept. The sponge city concept. Now, the moment when you talk about sponge city concept, right? Sponge city concept. You should remember sponge means it is having the capacity of permeability as well as porosity. Permeability means allowing the water to pass. Porosity means holding the water. So the sponge city, which was introduced in China, a concept which was introduced in China, and it has become a successful model where many countries are using that. And when you're writing any answer on the sponge city, you should remember that this sponge city concept, it is based on nature-based solution. It is based on nature-based solution. Nature-based solution plus innovation. So what do you mean by nature-based solution? Nature-based solution includes activities like all the permanent structures has to be done. Example, planting trees. It is about afforestation or planting the trees. Or it also talks about restoring the wetlands or lakes, restoring the water bodies. Then it also talks about connecting the water bodies. Connecting water bodies. And remember, sponge city is a concept which is applied at present only in the urban areas. Only in the urban areas, right? So here when we talk about the water bodies can be lakes, ponds, a river which is flowing there, river, etc. We refer them as water bodies in the urban areas. So it is based on natural approach and also certain innovations which are there. Now, the moment when you talk about the sponge city, now this sponge city helps in two parameters. The sponge city is used in settling two issues. One, to control the urban flood. Second perspective is in the urban areas, we always find drought-like conditions will be there in the summer season. So hence, sponge city concept can help in recharging the groundwater. Recharging the groundwater. That means that it will help in increasing the groundwater. Recharging or increasing the water table in the urban areas so that it will help in the drought issues. So hence, this sponge city concept talks about percolation of groundwater. Sorry, percolation of surface water. Percolation means permeability aspect. So when we say permeability, permeability surfaces should be there, where we use many types of the engineering activities like eco blocks, planting the trees, so that the water moves downward. So it should increase the permeability. The water should percolate downward. The surface water should move downward. And that water can help in increasing the groundwater. Surface water should move downward. Right. So this permeability can be increased by using eco-friendly manners. Eco-friendly, like planting the trees, connecting the water bodies, where they are made to stop and slowly it will percolate downward. So this is what you should remember. Permeability should be increased. It is like a sponge which absorbs the water. Apart from that, there are many buildings in the urban areas. So in the buildings, we can make green rooftops. Green rooftops. And this green rooftops will collect the water during rainy season, and this water will also move downward. And it is made a seepage. So it can also talk about green rooftops, which can accumulate the water, and this will help them to collect the water and recharge the groundwater. Recharge the groundwater. Now, these are the things which you should remember when you are writing anything on the sponge city. So this is very significant in the context of urban flood management, right? And India is also one of the country where it is making an effort to implement this. And in the context of India, in the pilot basis, we have initiated to work in Gujarat or Ahmedabad to create a sponge city. Ahmedabad in the year 2023 to create a sponge city. And that model is something which is working on permeability, collecting of the water bodies, creating early warning systems, etc. So that an integrated urban water management is done. So it is an integrated urban water management. See, green rooftop means when the greeneries are there, it will always make sure that whatever accumulated waters are there, so these waters are allowed to reach to the ground through a pipes, and through the pipes they enter into the ground areas which recharge the groundwaters. So green rooftop means making sure that the water is not evaporated. Right. So this is something which you have to keep in the context of your studies. Right. So the term sponge city, it talks about, so whatever I told, the definitions are there. Parks and all. So it means it talks about nature-based solution. Right. But also improve the ecology and biodiversity of that areas. Because when you plant the trees, it will help in increasing biodiversity. So hence it is nature-based solution. So please remember this nature-based solution concept, which I discussed in environment, right? And also it provides solution for groundwater depletion. How? By recharging the groundwater. Right. Then permeable construction. Permeable construction means which talks about making the water to move downward. So remember, sponge city is based on permeability and porosity. Permeability, porosity. Permeability means allowing the water to move. Porosity means accumulation of water. Right. So hence, it is very important in the context of the present climate change. Is it clear? Now, we have made an effort to introduce the sponge city concept as a pilot basis, in Ahmedabad, wherein a fund of rupees 250 crores has been allocated. Apart from that, the National Disaster Management Authority will also provide 50 crore annually for the project, which has been initiated in the year 2023. And this includes many components such as lake interlinking, installation of eco block stormwater management, filtration of the tank in the key water logging, and developing the real flood warning system. So at least four components are there. One is interlinking, installation of eco block storm waters, then filtration in the key water so that you will get a filtered amount of water, not the polluted water is entering. Then real time flood warning system so that they can prepare in the short period of a time. So always remember that eco blocks are polypropylene blocks. Eco blocks are polypropylene blocks that can be stacked. Stacked means clubbed together like a ziggle. Clubbed together. Stacked means attached. Combined. And they're easy to combine. Easy to combine. So this is a pilot project which has been started in Ahmedabad. Right. Now there is some rough idea about this. So these contents are more than sufficient. Now when we talk about eco blocks, so the advantages of eco blocks are they have great storage capacity. They can store huge water because of their makeup. They can have long life. Rather than normal brick, they can have long life. Easy for installation. Easy for installation. Then low maintenance. Low maintenance. So this is something which you should remember in the context of if you are writing anything on the sponge city concept with special reference to India. And there they talk about linking the waters and creating real-time monitoring system. So this is called as zonation map. Zonation map, which can help them for making the settlements and avoiding the settlements. Avoiding the settlements. Right. Now don't make much research on that. So whatever content is there, they are sufficient. Right. Apart from that, you can use any type like aerators. Yes, Stephen, you can say them. Aerators are used. Aerators are also used. I'm giving you a flow in which you have to maintain. No, the concept is very clear. Now don't read the concept again and again. You have to read what innovations have been used. Like EcoBlock is an innovation, aerator is an innovation. What else innovator has been used? So that should be updated. The concept remains the same. Now, don't read the concept in 10 books. Read the concept 10 times, that is sufficient. But what extra things are there, like eco blocks, aerators, what new things are added to that? So that becomes a point to be remembered here. So please understand the way of writing answers. The concept remains the same, but what addition you are adding to that is what techniques have been added. So updated techniques are to be always updated in your answers. Pilot means first. Pilot means in a small proportion. If it becomes successful, then it is applied for other parts of India. Pilot means in the beginning, as a what we say drill, as we say in the initial stage, we'll try that. Experimentation. Experimentation. Right. Then flood forecasting in India. Now, the moment when you talk about flood forecasting in India, very systematic and organized flood forecasting is done. Generally, in India, we always make observation and collection of data. Observation and collection of data. Which data you are talking? So it is collection of the hydrological data, the lakes, the water which is there. Collection of hydrological and hydrometeorological. Metro means rainfall data. Hydrological and hydrometeorological data. Meteorological data. So this data is observed and collected, and then it is transferred to forecasting center. It is transferred to forecasting center. Forecasting centers. And the forecasting centers make analysis of this data. The forecasting center will make analysis of data, and after analyzing, it will prepare a forecast. Preparation of forecast. And this forecast which is prepared, is disseminated. This forecast which is prepared is disseminated to people. Disseminated to the people. So this is how the flood forecasting is done in India. So it is a network which is done by Central Water Commission, nodal agency. Right. So which takes care of all these perspectives in the rivers, interstate river basins, and prepares a forecast which is disseminated to the people. Disseminated to the people. Is that clear? So this is something which is significant in the forecasting parameters. Now, flood disaster management. So whatever we have done, a quick recap of that. Risk analysis by comparing the previous data. Forecasting, early warning system and all. Reducing runoff. Reducing runoff means divert the water streams. Divert the water flow. Channelize them so that huge accumulation of water is reduced. Divert them to different so that slowly it moves out and percolate downward. Then construction of embankment. Now embankment means, you should remember, embankment can be artificial or it can be natural. Artificial and natural embankment. Now artificial means constructing through engineering activities. So if this is a river which is flowing, in the urban areas, then when you plant trees in that, when you plant trees on the banks of that, we refer that as natural embankment, mangroves, etc. When you plant the trees, we refer that as a natural embankment. Example, mangroves. Mangroves. When you use bricks, iron rods, and engineering methods to increase the height of the bank, when you use the iron, bricks, steel to increase the height of the bank, we refer that as artificial embankment. So embankment means increasing the height of the bank. Increase the height of the bank so that the spilling will not be there, to control the flood. We refer that as embankments. Embankments. Is that clear? Then flood planning zone. So this flood planning zone helps them to restrict the settlements and take activities. Then conservation of natural buffers. Natural buffers like the forests, mangroves, lakes, etc. Risk transfer. So risk transfer means you are transferring the risk to something. It is what we refer them as insurance. 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 And we have many types of insurances are there. In agriculture, we are having Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Right. So that the risk is transferred to some institution there. Right. So risk transfer is making insurance more and more penetrate. So we have many insurance companies which have been reaching in India. Then integrated watershed management. So we'll see this. This is your geography. And this is long-term perspective. This is long-term perspective. Watershed means collection of the water. Then post-disaster management. After that, rescue, rehabilitation. All these are referred as post-disaster management. So these you should remember in the context. Flood, disaster management. Apart from that, you can add the models like sponge city models, which can be beneficial in disaster management. You can add models also in the urban areas like sponge city. Right. Now this is what we refer them as an embankment. And this is natural embankment. Embankment, where the height is increased. Where the height is increased. We refer that as natural levees. Right. Then this is what we refer them as the map. The zonation map. So this map will help them to make sure that restricting the construction. Restrict the construction of any type of activities. So we refer that as zonation. Zonation map. Zonation map. So please remember these terminologies in the context of flood management. Right. So this is the definition. Right. So read whatever has been discussed from last discussion and the present. And make your own notes, keeping the PPTs as a reference. Make your own notes, keeping the PPT as reference points. Right. Read them and use them into your preparation. Now next we move on to drought. We move on to drought. Drought is a condition of dryness due to shortage or lack of water, which are extended period of a time. Now don't confuse drought with famine. Famine is a condition where there is shortage of food grains. Drought is shortage of water or lack of water. extended over a longer period of a time. Now this drought, the moment when we say, it is very complex term. It is very complex in the nature. We don't have single criteria, no single criteria. No single criteria to define drought. We don't have a single criteria. And when we talk about indexes to measure also, there are many indices to measure. Many indices to measure the drought. Many indices are there to measure a drought. But one important index or which is generally seen is referred as what we call it as Palmer index or Palmer drought severity index. Palmer drought severity index. So we refer that as PDSI. Palmer drought severity index. And this Palmer severity drought index has a numerical values from +6 to -6. +6 to -6. And any area when we are having +6 means it shows wet, more amount of water. Wetter, more wetter it will be in the plus values. Minus means dry condition. Dry condition. So here the dryness is calculated on the numerical values. They will never ask you what is 5, 6. They will ask what is Palmer index. So Palmer index is something which is used to identify the drought. Palmer index, dryness. So Palmer index is used to measure the dryness. Is that clear? Now, in the context of India, when you are reading, you should remember that of the total net zone area, that is 140 million hectares, 50% or 70 million hectares is rain-fed. Rain-fed means it depends on rain. Rain-fed. Dry areas, which is vulnerable for drought. Apart from that, a data which is released by United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification, UNCCD. I have explained what is UNCCD, United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification. A data which is released by United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification. It says that it reports, or India has reported drought once in every 3 years. India reported drought once in every 3 years. Every 3 years we have the droughts. Then the second, it also says that there has been a tremendous loss in the GDPs. So India has lost 2 to 5% of GDP. India has lost 2 to 5% of GDP in the context of mitigating drought. Money is involved in mitigation of the drought, and this drought mitigation It is from 1997 to 2017. From 1997 to 2017. So this is very important data. And this you can use when you are writing your mains answers. Vulnerability and the data which is released by United Nations Convention for Combating of Desertification. Desertification. Is that clear? Now, why this drought is considered as a complex? Why many criteria are there? Why we don't have uniform definition? Why every country has different mode of approach towards the drought? The reason is its unique features. It starts very slowly, slow onset. Slowly it starts. It is not sudden like the floods. Second, it impacts larger areas. Huge areas are affected by that. Then its impacts are cumulative. One is added to next. It is added to the next. Like the crops get damaged, it will affect economic activity. It will affect the other parts. So cumulative effects are there. So its effects are cumulative, adding one and one. So it keeps on adding to the burden to the areas there. Then no structural damages. So it is very difficult to quantify. Buildings will not collapse. Right? No structural damages are there. So hence, difficult to quantify the impact. We don't know when exactly the drought has started and when it has ended. So no exact date when it has started. No exact date when it is ending. We don't have any exact dates. Apart from that, there is no clear demarcation of area. You can't demarcate which area is affected by the drought. So no exact demarcation. No exact demarcation. So that's why we say drought regions. So hence we use the term drought regions. We don't have administrative divisions on that. No administrative divisions. No administrative boundaries. No administrative boundaries. Right. So we define them as a drought regions. If you take one big state, a small portion is affected in that. You can't demarcate that. In a big state, a small portion is affected. A small portion of district is affected. And within the district, a small taluka is affected. So you can't demarcate that. It's very difficult to demarcation. So hence we use the drought regions. And that is the characteristics which makes the drought as unique in the context. Now please remember these things. So that's why every country will have their own parameters. Now in the context of India, when you talk about any droughts, the droughts are declared by concerned states. So we have a manual called as drought manual of 2016. According to the drought manual of 2016, the droughts are declared by concerned states. They are declared by concerned states. Then next one is, who is monitoring the drought in India? So these droughts are monitored by Indian Meteorological Department, IMD. Please keep these in the mind. IMD means Indian Meteorological Department. Indian Meteorological Department. They monitor the droughts in the context of India. Is it clear? So hence, we don't have any unique type, we don't have any uniform definitions. So the drought definition varies from one country to another. But in the context of India, the drought prone areas are defined by three major geographical regions. So we define them as three zones. The first one is on the map, a triangular region where it connects the point of Jalandhar in Punjab and Ahmedabad in Gujarat. Jalandhar in Punjab, Ahmedabad in Gujarat. So it is a triangular area, Jalandhar in Punjab, Ahmedabad in Gujarat. From there up to Kanpur. Up to Kanpur. So this is referred as the first zone. That is triangular area, which includes Jalandhar, Ahmedabad, and Kanpur. So when you're writing your answers, you should remember that triangular area consisting of Jalandhar, Ahmedabad, and Kanpur. JAK. That is the first region. Second region is, here you are having the Western Ghats. And the windward region will get huge rainfall. But what about the leeward region, the rain shadow region? So this region is the second area, second zone. That is leeward region of Western Ghats. Leeward of Western Ghats. Right. So that is your second zone. Leeward of Western Ghats. Then the third region is isolated patches in different states. Isolated patches like Purulia in West Bengal, Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. So these are called as isolated patches, where maybe due to shortage of rainfall or some other conditions, there is a drought like. So the third one is isolated patches. Isolated patches. So this is how you should remember in the context of drought. So if you are drawing the map, this is sufficient in the context of exam. So hence this talks about the triangular shape, the leeward region, and isolated patches. Isolated patches. So in the context of India, remember this. In the floods, I have told how to draw the map. And this is with reference to drought-prone areas. Drought-prone areas, which always are associated with the major problems of availability of the water there. Is it clear? Drought-prone areas. Now, how we define the droughts in India? Types of drought. Now, in the context of India, NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, defines the droughts. And here, in the context of India, we have defined them into four types based on different parameters. The first one is based on rainfall, precipitation. We refer that as meteorological drought. Logical drought. And this is based on precipitation or rainfall. Now, generally, whenever, if any area, if it is having a rainfall 75% less than long period average, if any area receives rainfall in that year, 75% less than the long period average, 75% of long period average. So if it receives that, then we refer that as the drought area. It is something like this. Example, if that area A is receiving 100 centimeters of rainfall, area A is receiving 100 centimeters of rainfall. Now in the year 2010, this has received around 74 centimeters of rainfall. Then we refer this as a drought. We refer this as drought condition. Right. So any area which receives the rainfall 75% less than its long period average, then we refer that as the meteorological drought. And further, it is classified as severe and moderate. Further, it is classified as severe and moderate. Then the second type of drought is associated with water table, and we refer that as hydrological drought. Hydrological drought. And this is associated with water table. Water table. Now, what is water table? This is the surface of Earth. Surface of Earth. And here we find the groundwater. Here we find the groundwater. So the upper layer of groundwater. Upper layer of groundwater is referred as water table. Upper layer of groundwater is referred as water table. So this is water table. Now hydrological drought is when the water table falls to great depth. So hydrological drought occurs when the water table falls to great depth. When it falls to depth, it means that due to overexploitation, when it falls to great depth, so there is a severe shortage of water for livestock resources. Severe shortage of water for livestock and human needs. Human needs. We refer that as hydrological drought. It is associated with the water table. Then the third one is agricultural drought. Agricultural drought. What is this agricultural drought? Now, due to the shortage of water, the soil moisture has reduced. So when we talk about the soil moisture, it means that it may be availability of irrigation or maybe rainfall. So the soil moisture has reduced to very, very low, which makes the impact of the growth of the crop. So soil moisture has reduced. So inadequate water for crops. Inadequate water for the crops. So it means that there is a shortage of water for irrigation. So these crops will become dry and ultimately they die. The standing crops will die. Right. So we refer this as agricultural drought. Then fourth one is socio-economic drought. Socio-economic drought. Now, whenever the socio-economic drought is there, it is referred as the most severe drought. Most severe. Entire fabric of society is affected. Entire fabric of society is affected. The rich, the poor, all are affected by that. And this socioeconomic drought is such that when there is a shortage of water is there, crops will not be there. So it will affect the livestock, it will affect the food production, etc. So what happens when there is low food production is there? So generally when the socioeconomic droughts are there, there is no crops, there is not availability of any type of economic resources. So it leads to unemployment. It leads to unemployment in the agriculture sector or in the rural sector. So this makes the people to migrate from one area to another region. So this will make them migration. So people start living their rural area and they moved on to different states. So migration starts here. Plus, it will also create health issues. Health issues. So such type of severe droughts, we refer that as socio-economic drought. Is that clear? Now, when you make a linkage of that, when there is a no rainfall for 2 years or 3 years, then meteorological drought will lead to hydrological drought. Meteorological drought, if there is no rainfall for 2 years, 3 years, then the water table will move downward. So that leads to hydrological drought. Now, when the water table is also not there, when the rainfall is also not there, so the soil moisture will decrease. So hence, meteorological drought and hydrological drought will lead to the agricultural drought. Meteorological drought, hydrological drought, if both are there, then that will lead to the agricultural drought. Then if there is no rainfall, groundwater is not there, agriculture crops are also damaged, then where the people will stay? So they start moving. So hence, meteorological drought, hydrological drought, and agricultural drought is responsible for socioeconomic droughts. So this is the linkage between them. So meteorological drought leads to hydrological drought. Meteorological, hydrological drought combinedly leads to agriculture drought. Meteorological, hydrological, and agriculture droughts combinedly leads to socio-economic drought, which is referred as the most severest type of the droughts. So please remember these droughts in the context of India. And I have given the definitions. Situation when the seasonal rainfall is less than 75% of its long period value. And if it is 26 to 50, then we refer that as moderate. 26% to 50% of long period average, we refer this as moderate drought. Moderate drought. And if it is exceeding 50%, then we refer that as severe drought. More than 50%, then we refer that as severe drought. Severe droughts exceeding 50% of the normal value, we refer that as severe droughts. So long period means taking the data of 20 years, 30 years, long period average. Then agricultural drought. So this is the first type, this is the second type of drought, agricultural drought, right? Then the third one is the hydrological drought, water table part. Then socioeconomic drought. Socioeconomic drought, that means it talks about something which is associated with people living their area, migration, health issues, livestock deaths, etc. are there. So this is something which we refer them as socio-economic droughts. Is it clear? So these are the four types of droughts in the context of India. Now, apart from that, in current affairs, we talk about something called as flash floods, a news which is always seen. Sorry, flash droughts. Flash floods means large amount of water when it reaches to area, we refer that as flash floods. In the same way, we have flash droughts also. Now, this is mainly due to the impact of climate change. Where many factors affects there. Many factors affects there, like wind factor, evaporation, transpiration, low rainfall, etc. So all these, when they combinedly affect, all these when they combinedly act, there is no rainfall, more amount of transpiration is there, more amount of evaporation is there. So what will happen? The water on the surface is evaporated, the water from the vegetation is evaporated, and there is no rainfall which can fill that. Then it will make the rivers to dry very fast, the lakes to dry very fast, the vegetation to dry very fast in a short period of a time. In a very short period of a time, the river dries up completely, the water bodies dries up completely, the vegetation dries completely. We refer that as flash droughts. Flash droughts. So it is rapid onset or intensification of the droughts, which is due to these factors. Now, when there is a higher temperature, evapotranspiration increases. Evapotranspiration increases. So when the evapotranspiration is more, so groundwater will also reach to the leaves, and the leaves will emit more amount of the water vapor. So this will have huge impact. It is something like this. Big trees are there, and these trees have roots. So these trees will have leaves. Now, during the large amount of evapotranspiration, so groundwater, so the roots will take the groundwater will be there, or the surface water will reach there, and they will evaporate more in the form of transpiration. So there will be a shortage of groundwater, there will be a shortage of surface water very fast. We refer that as flash droughts, and this we have experienced in the northeastern part of India. In the northeastern part of India, even though the northeastern part of India receives heavy rainfall, but area of long dry spell, the region of long dry spell, will make such types of impact here. And this is mainly due to the climate change parameters. Climate change parameters, right? If it is not predicted and discovered in the early stage, then it will have a huge impact on the people. It can lead to famines, it can lead to huge amount of deaths, or that. The highest frequency of flash drought are always found in the tropics and subtropical areas. Tropics and subtropical areas. Subtropic means 25 to 30-degree latitudes. Now, in the context of India, we find peninsular parts are there, but even the northeast are also seen. Even the northeast portions are facing the flash droughts. See, the peninsular parts are always affected by flash droughts, like Bangalore, Mumbai, or Tamil Nadu. So they're always affected by flash droughts. But the northeastern regions are also affected by the flash droughts because of the impact of the climate change, where there is a long dry spell. That is subtropical area. Northeasterns means subtropical areas, right? So we find subtropical areas are affected by the impact of flash droughts. So please remember this. They may ask in your UPSC, write a note on flash droughts and how these flash droughts are different from the normal. So these flash droughts, they occur very sudden. But the droughts which we discussed, they are traditional droughts which are very slow. They're very slow. These are very sudden in action. Right. So remember the difference between normal droughts and flash droughts. So normal droughts, they take time, but flash droughts, sudden, in a span of 1 week, we find the conditions become unfavorable. We refer them as flash droughts. So traditional flash droughts. Right. Now, factors making drought susceptible in India. Why we find droughts are more prone in India? There has to be some region. There has to be some reason for that. Right. The first one is yearly, seasonal, and regional variation in the rainfall in spite of high average rainfall. Now, in the context of India, the pattern of rainfall is referred as monsoon. Monsoon. Seasonal, reversal of the wind. So, in spite of India having high average rainfall, we always find seasonal and regional variations are there. Some area receives heavy rainfall, some areas receive less rainfall. So we find variations are there in spite of having high average rainfall because of geographical features, because of geographical regions, right? A short span of fewer than 100 days during the southwest monsoon. Now, generally, when we talk about southwest monsoon in India, southwest monsoon in India is also referred as 100 days rainfall. 100 days rain. A very peculiar term. The southwest monsoon is also referred as 100 days rainfall because the southwest monsoon brings rainfall in the month of June, July, August, and September. 4 months are there, which are for 100 days. Now, due to the impact of climate change, we find in some month heavy rainfalls are there, and after that there is a huge gap between the time. So we find there is a very long span of dry areas. Long dry spans are there. So if you take the data of 15 years or 5 years back, every month there was a rainfall. But now we find that 1 week heavy rainfall will be there. And that leads to floods. And after that, for 40 days, there will be no rainfall. So the same area, if you take example, any area B. So this area B, during heavy rainfall, it is affected by floods. And the same area, when there is long dry span, is affected by the droughts. So this is mainly because of the impact of climate change, where the southwest monsoon was distributed for 100 days. Now we find that 20 days will be having heavy rainfall, 60 days no rainfall, then again 20 days heavy rainfall. So what the rainfall we used to receive in 15 days, we are receiving in 2 days. And that is where the floods were there. And this is where we have seen in the context of Bangalore, in the context of Gurugram, in the context of Chennai, in the context of Mumbai region. So Chennai also, last year, heavy floods were there. Why? Because heavy rainfall in a short period of a time. Mumbai, the same thing. Bangalore, heavy rainfall in 3 or 4 days. After that, dry spells. So hence, we find the same region experiences flooding, the same region experiences drought. So Bangalore was experiencing floods in 2023, but the same Bangalore is experiencing drought. Why? Because of long spell of dry season without any rainfall. And this is mainly because of the climate change issues, where the rainfall patterns have been affected. Then loss of water during heavy rainfall. So we don't have proper infrastructures to store. So hence we are focusing on sponge cities. So no proper drainage system. So large amount of the water reaches to the oceans through the Right. So we don't have lakes, we don't have proper storage facilities. Then less rainfall, over 33% of cropped area. So it means that there is very small amount of rainfall in the cropped areas because of the geographical part, rain shadow region, or because of their geographical extent there. Over exploitation of groundwater resources. So this over exploitation of groundwater mainly for traditional methods of irrigation, traditional unscientific methods of irrigation, or sometimes due to groundwater mining activities where we use the groundwater for filling the Bisleri waters, using them for selling. So we refer that as groundwater mining. Groundwater mining. Right. And large amount of water is used for industrial activities. So over exploitation of groundwater resources. We are exploiting them, we are using them, but at the same time, poor conservation and storage mechanism. Poor storage and conservation, right? And that is where we have always shortage of water. Then steady decline in per capita water availability, even in the non-drought years. Steady decline in per capita availability of human and animals. Why? Because our demands have increased. The population has increased. The population has increased. The livestock have increased. So even in the non-drought areas also, there is always per capita income, which is, so per capita water, which is less. Then it also talks about rapid deforestation, urbanization, climate change, which has affected the erratic rainfall pattern. This is what I was talking about. Erratic rainfall patterns. We don't have the 100 days rainfall. It has been affected. Then limited irrigation coverage leading to excessive development dependent on agriculture. So we find that dry land farming is dominant in India. It means we don't have proper irrigation facilities. No proper irrigation facilities. No proper irrigation facilities. Then faulty cropping patterns and overemphasis on water grazing. The faulty cropping patterns means, you take an example, Punjab and Haryana. So in Punjab and Haryana, we always see that the rainfall is very less before the winter season. So hence, rice is not a traditional crop of that. So in Punjab and Haryana, where they grow the rice, so this rice requires large amount of water, and this water is fed by irrigation through groundwater, and that is where we find there is a depletion of groundwater in Punjab and Haryana, because rice is not the natural crop of Punjab. It is not a natural crop of Punjab, and this rice was introduced there after the Green Revolution. After the Green Revolution, the rice was introduced in Punjab and Haryana so that they can have good amount of the economic returns to them, profit motive, right? So it is something which is also, it is about basmati or non-basmati rices. So they introduced that to get more. And as the Punjab and Haryana, they receive rainfall only during the winter season, that is western disturbances. So rice is a natural crop of delta areas where the rainfall is more. And to provide water for the rice, they have started groundwater in the form of irrigation. And this irrigation of the rice is responsible for depletion of groundwater. Depletion of groundwater in Punjab and Haryana, which is referred as one of the example of the faulty cropping patterns. So we should grow those crops which are ideal for that agroclimatic regions here. Is it clear? So this is something which is associated with the factors which makes the drought more prone in the context of India, right? Now here, when we talk about climatic factors and all, so in the context of climatic factors and all, apart from these, so when I say change in the rainfall patterns, it includes El Nino. It includes El Nino as well. El Nino as well. So because of El Nino only, the rainfall patterns have been changed here, right? So we talk about these El Nino. Now, if you are reading your current affairs continuously, last 2 days they are telling that this El Nino is about to end, and this El Nino has been transferred into neutral phase, and they are predicting that India will get monsoon rainfall, that is southwest monsoon, more than normal, because this El Nino phase has ended up. It will become a normal phase, and the time when the monsoon starts, it will enter again into La Nina phase, and La Nina phase will provide more than normal rainfall for India. So this is something which we say a good news in the context of Indian monsoon. So in 2024, they say that the La Nina and El Nino phases have been changed. Now you should be very careful about these things. You should be very careful about these things. The reason is, if you talk about the data, so 2023 up to 2024, in the Pacific Ocean, it was having El Nino effect. El Nino effect. Now, before this, continuously for 3 years, 3 years in continuous, the Pacific Ocean was experiencing La Nina. La Nina. And we refer that as triple dip La Nina. Triple dip La Nina. And this triple dip La Nina, is advantage for India, which created more rainfall, excess rainfall. Excess rainfall. Now, the data shows that 2023, 2024. So there we find El Nino impact was there. Now they predict that 2024, they predict that this El Nino has entered into neutral. This El Nino has entered into neutral. So it means there is possibility that again it will move on to La Nina. Possibility. It will move on to La Nina. So hence the prediction by Indian Meteorological Department, IMD predicts that this 2024 we will have excess rainfall. The monsoon will be, more specifically the southwest monsoon will be more, or it will be excess. This is the prediction for 2024 based on the things which takes place in the Pacific Ocean. La Nina, El Nino factor, right? So please read these. So these all are your geography part. So when we talk about that, see, this ENSO is something which is referred as El Nino Southern Oscillation. They are all your geography terms. You should be good enough in that. El Nino Southern Oscillation. And this ENSO falls into three phases. ENSO falls into three phases. The neutral phase, then positive phase, then negative phase. Positive phase is referred as La Nina. And negative phase is referred as El Nino. This is your basic geography. This is your basic geography. Is that clear? So please read these things. So this is something which you have to keep in the mind. So when you're reading your current affairs and all, you should keep these data in your mind. Right. Now the impact of droughts. So they will have environmental impact, they will have economic impact, and they will have social impact. Environment impact means there will be a area where the shortage of water will be there, drying of wetlands, biodiversities, etc. Right. So it will affect all the ecosystems. Then economic impact. So hydroelectricity generation losses will be there, crop losses will be there. Right. So that is called as economic impact. Agriculture, crops, livestock resources, transport facilities, raw material transport, everything is there. So we have economic losses, we have environmental losses, then social impact, migration of people, rural urban demand. So all these will increase, all these will increase. So these are the three impacts. You can write them one below the other, or you can write them in the group wise. So always remember, in the context of impact of drought, environment plus economic are there, plus it is also leading to social drought, migration, etc. So hence we say it is socio-economic impact, socio-economic impact. Right, now this is the definition of drought, why drought is different from other disasters. So whatever we have discussed, I have explained here in these. Now next we move on to understand drought risk management. Now the moment when you talk about drought risk management, you should understand that this drought is something which is long term perspective, traditional, and also we are having something called as flash droughts are also there. So as its onset and all are very complex. So in the context of drought risk management, when we talk about the approaches, so the approaches can be two ways: short-term measures, and then you can give long-term measures. Long-term measures. Now, what are short-term measures? The short-term measure is the moment when the drought is seen. Now, this drought, I told you in the beginning itself that who declares the drought? It is declared by the concerned state government. It is declared by the concerned state government. The moment when the state government declares that, what they will do? As the people migrate from one area to another area, their idea is to stop the migration. And to stop the migration, immediately they will implement Manrega, right? Implement Manrega. So what is Manrega? It is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, providing them employment activities. Employment. So that the migration is stopped. They should have certain amount of food facilities, right? So Manrega is applied, 100 days employment opportunities. Second, in the short term, you should arrange drinking water. Arrange drinking water. Third, arrange fodder for animals. Fodder for animals like cattle, buffaloes, etc. You should always arrange fodder for them. Then strengthen the availability of food for the poor people. So we refer that as strengthening PDS, strengthening the public distribution system, so that they will get at least amount of food. Then loan waiver, so that the farmers will get relief from that. Loan waiver, or deferring the loan, converting the loan from short term to long term. Converting the short term loan to long term, so that the farmer will not have psychological impact. So the suicide rates will decrease here. Suicide rates will decrease here. So we refer them as short-term measures in the context of drought. Now, what are long-term measures? Long-term measures. In the long-term measures, we talk about watershed management. Watershed management. Programs and schemes. We talk about something called as providing irrigation infrastructure. Irrigation infrastructure. So these are referred as long-term perspectives. So drought risk management can be done in the short term and in the long term. Now always remember, it is declared by the state and monitored by Indian Meteorological Department. Now here when we talk about long-term parameters, long-term parameters are nothing but the schemes which have been launched by Government of India, the programs which have been launched by Government of India, right? And here the programs are, and I have given you the description of all the programs. They are Desert Development Program, they are Drought Prone Area Program, DPAP, Integrated Wasteland Development Program, and Integrated Watershed Management Program. Very long-term perspectives. And I have given the description of all those. I have given what this program means, DPAP, DDP. Now, first, understand the flow. Understand the flow. And then you can read them in your later stages. Read them in the later stages. Programs which are very, very important for your examination. Now, programs for drought risk management. Now, the first program which was introduced is Drought Prone Area Program. Drought Prone Area. Watershed management means collection of water. Any area where you collect the water and you manage them wisely, we refer that as watershed management. This is your geography part, Bimrai. This is your geography. Wherever the collection of water is done, either it can be through rain or from rivers or from melting of the glacier. Any area where you collect the water, we refer that as watershed. Now, if it is not done, please understand this. The moment when you talk about watershed, so watershed means collection of water. So this is a ground area. Now here you collect the water either from rainfall or from melting of glacier or from rivers or any other source. Any other source. So all these sources from which the water is collected, the water which is collected. So this collected water is referred as watershed. And these watersheds are classified on the basis of their sizes. They are classified on basis of their size. On basis of size, like mini watershed, micro watershed, etc. Example, mini, macro, etc. So we refer them as watershed. And these watershed, they always have a problem of pollution, encroachment, etc. Now they can be ponds, they can be lake, or big farmer when he construct in his agricultural farm, we refer that as watershed. A big farmer, a village, we refer them as watershed. Now these watershed, they always have the problem of pollution, encroachment, wetland issues. So they always have the problem, and managing them is major problem. So managing them is major problem. Managing means you should protect them from pollution and other aspect. And this aspect of wise usage of wetlands, we refer that as watershed management. Is that clear? So these all your geography terms. Now the first one is drought prone area program. Now in the context of this DPAP, so we find many areas where the droughts were vulnerable, like the three areas, Jalandhar, Ahmedabad, Kanpur, then the leeward of Western Ghats, and that. So in the drought prone area program, they decided that we should focus on afforestation, rainwater harvesting, plus providing economic support to farmers. Economic support to farmers in the form of giving them livestock, etc. So that if there is no rainfall, they can generate their livelihood, food capacities, so that they can have their livelihood, even if there is a drought like condition is there. So this is the first program, drought prone area program. Then it continued. Then they found that deserts are different from droughts. So deserts are permanent aridity. So hence, whatever programs we have taken in the drought prone area are not suitable for desert. So hence, they introduced a new program called as Desert Development Program, because deserts are different. Deserts are different from that. And here also, they made more intensive shelter belting, planting the trees, providing economic supports to the farmers there. So they also did the same type of activities with more intensities, creating more greeneries, creating more amount of that. So apart from that, restoring and creating new water bodies, restoring and creating new water bodies, which will accumulate the water here. Second, then they moved on somewhere in 1980s. So in 1980s, they found that large amount of wastelands were there in the government areas, panchayat areas. So they found more wastelands were there, barren areas, rocky areas where they are not suitable for agricultural crops. Then the government decided that why don't we use these wastelands? Why don't we use these wastelands for creating storage and also create employment in the rural areas? Employment in rural areas. How? By making them to dig the lakes, restore the lakes. And this is where we see Manrega was used in the year 2022, where the people were employed in restoring the lakes, which stopped the migration. And this played a very important role in 2023 during COVID, where they were given employment opportunities to dig the lake, restore the lakes. And this program, which was done in the panchayat areas, barren areas, we refer them as integrated wasteland management program. Integrated wasteland management program. So three programs were continuously running there. After that, the government found that we have implemented DPAP, DDP in 1980s, but the results were not effective. There are some problems. Due to that, these programs are not giving the results what it is anticipated. So hence, based on a committee recommendation, so based on Hanumant Rao committee recommendation, Hanumant Rao committee recommendation, all the three programs were merged. So 1, 2, 3. All the three programs were merged with common guidelines. with common guidelines, so that effective implementation can be done. And this program, which was merged with the common guidelines, is referred as Integrated Watershed Management Program. So it is Integrated Watershed Management Program. Right. And this was in the year 1990s. Integrated Watershed Management Program. Right. Now, a systematic change was introduced here. After 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, where decentralization was introduced. Local bodies were given authorities. So here also, this integrated watershed management program was made decentralized. It means Panchayati Raj institutions were involved in watershed management. PRIs, Panchayati Raj institutions, were involved in watershed management. And this, which was started in the year 2002 and 3, where we say it was introduced with local people's participation. And this is referred as Haryali. Haryali. So it started from 1970s. Now we reach to Haryali in the year 2003. And then in the year 2008, the guidelines were restructured. Then again, we found that as this program is running, but still no proper results were there. So hence, we reached in the year 2015 and 16. Based on the recommendation of Niti Aayog, this watershed management program is now a part of an irrigation scheme which is introduced, which is referred as Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. On the recommendation of Niti Aayog, this watershed management is component of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, and this is as per 2024. So if you are reading today, watershed management is not an independent. Now it is a part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So these all are from 1970s. And today the watershed management is a part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So this is what you have to maintain the flow in writing your answers. Now Haryali is the watershed management was implemented from center downwards. Now the local people were not involved before 73rd and 74th Amendment. Center used to give the guidelines, center used to provide their formats. But after decentralized, the local people were involved. They started taking decisions in the context of watershed management, and hence this become very important in the context of the watershed management. And that is where they made it as a decentralized approach, and this decentralized approach is referred as Haryali. And at present, it is a part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. This is drought prone area program. I have given the objectives of that. Please read them carefully. Don't make much research on that. This is the first program. The second program is the Desert Development Program. Objectives are also mentioned here. Then this is Integrated Wasteland Program. Then all were merged. And then Haryali that is decentralized approach. And from 2015, it is implemented through Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So at present, it is a part of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So please read them carefully. Spend some time. So once you understand the flow, you don't have to by heart any such things. So this is the traditional part and the flow, how the integrated watershed management evolved in India. So this is evolution of watershed management. Now the recent programs are Niranchal program. Now here facts are important. It is World Bank assisted program and this is in 9 states. It has been implemented in 9 states only. 9 states only. They are Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan, and Telangana. Right. So it was the largest watershed management program with World Bank assistant. World Bank assisted. It's about bringing the institutional changes. The same, whatever we have discussed, the same points will be there. Creating awareness among the people so that they contribute in the programs. They become active participant. So this is Niranchal program. Niranchal program. The next is Jal Shakti. Now this is where we talk about Jal Shakti Abhiyan. So this is where catch the rain where it falls and when it falls. It started in the year 2019. It started in the year 2019. In 2020, it was suspended because of COVID. In 2020, because of COVID, it was not there. After that, again, it started implemented. Now, even in the year 2023 and 2024 also, it is implemented with a theme called as Catch the Rain. Catch the rain where it falls and when it falls. Where it falls and when it falls. These topics are very, very important. These topics are very, very important for your exam point of view and also for your basic. So I never discuss any topic which is waste one. I always take those topics because the time is very limited for me. I don't discuss waste topics. I take only those topics which are very, very important for your exam point of view. Catch the rain where it falls and when it falls. So it takes the consideration of pre-monsoon, monsoon, and post-monsoon. Post-monsoons. And here, this program consists of 5 intervention areas. They are water conservation and rain harvesting, renovation of traditional water bodies, reuse them, watershed development, and intensive forestation. So please read them in your current affairs. Please read them in your current affairs. See, this UPSC is something which is requiring a holistic approach. Now, if you start reading only those things which you feel better, will never lead you to get the success. You should understand what perspectives are important. So this is exclusive watershed management, Atal Bhujal Yojana. Atal Bhujal Yojana. And this is again implemented by World Bank Assist. World Bank Assist of 6,000 crore rupees project. So here 50%, that is 3,000 crore rupees, is credit from World Bank. This is contributed from World Bank in the form of credit. And the remaining 50%, is by Government of India. So Government of India will be providing that. No state will contribution from Government of India. No state contribution. no state contribution. So we refer that as the Atal Bhujal Yojana. And this is implemented in these states, 7 states: Gujarat, Haryana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh. So it is implemented in these states only. You have to remember not all, but you have to remember which state it is implemented. In prelims, in mains, you have to understand about this. Mains, you don't have to write the states. In prelims, if they ask, in the mains, you don't have to remember the facts. Mains, you have to remember the features. Is that clear? GPS means Gram Panchayatis. So these all are your basic terms. Gram Panchayatis. Right. So the last one is drought risk management, monitoring and early warning, conservation of natural buffers. Buffers means the water bodies, the mangroves, etc. Development of irrigation infrastructures. At present, we are having infrastructure like Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, or drip irrigation, or sprinklers, etc. Then drought prone area program. I have explained this. Then river interlinking. This is also taken as one of the aspect, that is transferring of surplus to the deficit, transferring the water from surplus basin to deficit basin. Then crop insurance, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, etc. Livelihood planning, employment opportunities, land use planning. Land use planning, it means that regulating, restricting, and making which area is suitable for which type. So land use planning, you will help them to create water bodies. They will help in planting the trees, etc. Right. So strengthening the welfare schemes like Manrega, availability of food, etc. Right. Response measures, livelihood activities, restructuring, all these. We refer that as the drought risk management. Drought risk management. Is that clear? Now, before ending that, a small thing which is associated with your current affairs. With your current affairs. I told something called as drought manual. After this, we will have a break of 15 minutes. Drought manual. So drought manual talks about the type of activities or type of fund management which is given there. Manual means it gives certain guidelines in the context of droughts, how it is implemented, what methodologies are done, how it is implemented, and what methodologies are done. Now, the drought manual first introduced in the year 2009. First introduced in India in the year 2009. And here, according to drought manual of 2009, the droughts were classified into three types. The droughts were classified into three types. Right. So the first one is referred as normal, then moderate, and severe drought. So three ways it was there. And whenever the state government declares the drought, the central fund was given to the state. The funds from center were given to the states in all the three types of droughts. In all three types. So central assistance was there. In all the three types of droughts, it was there. But A major thing was seen in the year 2015. So in the year 2014 and 15, when they studied that, there were mismanagement of funds were there. Mismanagement of the funds were there. So corruption was there. So in that case, Supreme Court asked the center to restructure the draft manual. It asked the center to restructure the draft manual. Now, based on the direction of Supreme Court, the draft manual 16 was introduced. New draft manual was introduced. New draft manual was introduced, and this is called as draft manual of 2016, which replaced the 2009, which replaced the 2009. So at present we are using the draft manual of 2016. Now, what changes it has introduced? In this draft manual, it classifies the draft only into two types. Only two types. That is normal drought and severe drought. So it does not take into consideration of moderate drought. It does not mean that the moderate droughts have been moved. Moderate droughts are there. Moderate droughts are there, but it takes only two types, normal and severe. Normal and severe. Now, central financial assistance is given only for severe droughts. Central financial assistance is given only for severe drought. Severe drought. Now here the problem is, it is the state government who has to declare that as a severe drought. It is the state government. State government who has to classify that as a severe drought. Now, to classify the severe drought, the parameters have been made very scientific. The parameters are made scientific. And it is very difficult for the state governments to classify the drought as severe. It is difficult for state governments to classify the drought as severe. So hence, if they don't declare that as a severe, if they make the parameters scientific parameters, then only they can declare that as a severe drought, or else they will not get any financial assistance. So that is the reason why many state governments, including Karnataka, certain aspects of Maharashtra, certain states of Kerala, they are opposing the drought manual of 2016. Even today also, if you're talking about 2024, the amount of delayed assistance because of these criteria, it is very difficult for the state government to prove the severe drought, as it is based on scientific measures. Apart from that, if any state is experiencing moderate droughts, so all the expenditures will be from the states. So apart from severe, in the normal and all expenditures will be bared by state. Bared by the state. So the state government says that this will become a burden for the state financial exchequer. So this will become a burden for the state government, that they have to provide the financial assistance from their state exchequer. So they have to provide the assistance from their state exchequer, state budget, etc. which will make a huge impact on the supply of money format there. So hence, many state governments are opposing the drought manual of 2016. So this is your current affairs aspect. So we can have a break. We'll start the class at 8:20. We'll start the class at 8:20. Okay, welcome back after a break. So, hope I'm audible as well as visible to you all. See, whatever we have discussed, they are very important for your exam point of view. And these are the contents which you won't get from the normal textbooks. So, they are all integrated from current affairs, basics, and all. If you follow the PPTs, and if you follow the current affairs, then that is more than sufficient in the context of your examination. This is the least content which you should carry in the examination point of view, right? Now we talk about the certain aspects which are associated with the mountains. So mountains are the regions, elevated areas. So in the context of India, we have mountains like Himalayas are there. We have Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats, Satpura Mountain, Aravali Mountains, Vindhyan Mountains, etc. Mountains, etc. So these mountains, they are always referred as most vulnerable for disasters. They are most vulnerable for disasters. And here we are talking about both type of disasters, natural as well as man-made. They are vulnerable for natural as well as man-made. Now, in the context of global warming and climate change, in the context of global warming and climate change, GW means global warming and climate change. The intensity and magnitude of disasters have increased there. Intensity and magnitude of the disasters have increased in the mountain areas. They always have seen the impact of magnitude. Magnitude means we talk about their area of operation. Intensity means severity. So they are becoming severe and larger. Severe, larger. And we also find their frequencies are increasing. The number of their occurrences are also increasing. The number is also increasing. Right. Now, when we talk about the mountains, the major disasters associated with the mountains, we generally talk about landslides, we talk about land subsidence, and we talk about something called as cloud bursting. In all the mountains, landslides are there, land subsidence are there, cloud burstings are seen, right? So these are the types of the disasters. Apart from that, we also have certain mountains like himalayas. So these himalayas, apart from landslides, cloud bursting and all, they are also are the mountains which are covered by glacier. They are covered by glacier or ice. So hence these himalayas, along with landslides, land subsidence, they are also associated with something called as glacial avalanches. And also what we refer them as glacial lake outburst floods, GLOF. Glacial lake outburst floods. So we always find these are the major disasters which are associated with the mountains, right? And they are accelerated because of human involvement. Now, keeping these perspective in the mind, we will take up some important disasters associated with the mountains and their impact on India. The first one is referred as cloud bursting. Cloud bursting. So the moment when we say cloud bursting, it is heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall in short period of a time and in smaller area. Short period and in the smaller area. We refer that as cloud bursting. Now, if you see the impact of monsoon, so because of the climate change or because of global warming, increasing temperature and climate change, it has affected monsoon patterns. Monsoon patterns are affected and wind patterns are also affected. Wind patterns both are affected. And this in turn has created huge disparities in rainfall, which has created huge disparity or variation in the rainfall. Now, whatever we see some 20 years back is not seen at present. Now, if you see the data, we find that the red colored one, that is Ladakh and Jammu Kashmir, some parts of Uttarakhand, some parts of Rajasthan, and some parts of Tamil Nadu, etc. So where we find there has been increase of more than 35% of rainfall, percentage of precipitation, percentage of rainfall, what we say. In many areas, it has increased tremendously. In many areas, it has increased tremendously. Like the Kashmir region, Western Himalayas, a part of Eastern Himalayas, then Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu region, where it has increased to more than 35%. Apart from that, certain areas where it has increased up to 35%. And these areas are also the same in the neighboring areas of Punjab, Haryana, and also the parts of South and the western side. So we find there has been a tremendous increase in the precipitation patterns. Apart from that, there is also change in the monsoon patterns. In the shorter period, we are getting huge rainfall. In short period, we are getting huge rainfall, huge precipitation. Like whatever we used to get for 2 months, we are getting that in 4 days. Whatever we are getting for 2 months, we are getting in 4 days or 10 days. So in short period, huge precipitations are there. And that is where we find that they all are responsible for creating heavy rainfall in the shorter period of a time. Now, how does this cloud bursting is seen? In the context of India, this cloud bursting is generally seen in the mountain areas. It is seen generally in the mountain areas, like Himalayas, in the Himalayas. Right. So in the mountains, we always find a type of a rainfall which is referred as orographic impact. So it means the warm and cold air masses meet and they rise up. Orographic means barrier imposed. And here the barriers are the mountains, like Himalayas. So here we find the warm and cold air masses when they meet. If this is a mountain, we find warm air mass and cold air mass meet. They collide with the mountain. They collide with mountain, and then they move upward because of initial momentum. After collision, they move upward. They collide and move upward. Barrier imposed. And when it is moving upward, so this moisture, it gets adiabatic cooling. Adiabatic cooling. And this is something which creates the clouds and condensation. So it creates condensation. That is, water droplets will be there. Adiabatic cooling, right, which creates the clouds, the droplets and all. Now, as the warm and cold air mass meets and they move upward due to their initial momentum, we refer that as orographic impact. Orographic impact. And this region is called as windward, and this is leeward region. So in the windward area, wherever huge moisture and cold air mass is accumulated, so this makes strong condensation, and which creates the water droplets in the clouds. So the droplets in the clouds will be there. Sometimes, not always, sometimes, because of the large amount of electrostatic forces, the water droplets are held within the clouds because of strong electrostatic force. The water droplets are withheld within the clouds. They are withheld within the clouds. And they keep on accumulating. In the clouds. At one stage, when the droplets become bigger, when the cloud is unable to bear that volume of water, so this cloud bursts, it breaches, and whatever accumulated water is there in the cloud falls to the ground at high intensity. So this creates what we refer them as cloud bursting. So this is cloud bursting. And this is when we say normal rainfall. So in the normal rainfall, whenever the droplets are there, they will fall. We can refer them as heavy rainfall and all. But the cloud bursting is when we find the droplets, when they accumulate. After that, sudden release. Is referred as cloud bursting, which we have witnessed them in many states. Like Himalayan mountains. And very classical example of this is in the year 2023, more specifically in Sikkim, where the cloud bursting was on the Lonak Lake. Right. So many incidences of cloud burstings are there. And in India, the Himalayan regions are most vulnerable for cloud bursting because of orographic impact. Right. So when we talk about these things, again, I'm telling you, if you are good in geography, then disaster management will become a cakewalk for you. When we talk about precipitation, you should remember that the major things for precipitation is that when the water droplets become bigger and bigger, then they exceeds the buoyant force of the earth, and then they can reach to the earth. So hence, in the context of precipitation, two terms are important: collation and coalesce. So these small droplets has to meet in the clouds. They should combine and they become the bigger molecules. We refer that as collation and coalesce. And if they are bigger, then only they can reach to the earth in the form of precipitation. And that process is called as the precipitation process. Now, sometimes because of more electrostatic forces, these water droplets will not leave the clouds. Maybe due to lightning effect, they accumulate in the clouds. They don't leave the clouds in certain cases. So that huge accumulation of the water, when it falls, when the clouds bursts them, when they break, we refer that as cloud bursting. So it is huge accumulated water. When it falls to the surface in the form of heavy rainfall in the shorter period of a time, we refer that as cloud bursting. We refer that as cloud bursting. Is that clear? So always remember, in your optional geography, you always read about these two terms, collation and coalesce. Right. So the droplets, if they are smaller, they can't reach to the earth because there is a buoyancy which takes the droplets away from the earth's surface. So the drop should be bigger, then only they will reach to the earth. So hence, two principles are there. They should coalesce after collision. Two droplets should collide and they should become a bigger one. Then only they can reach to the earth. So hence, in any precipitation, you always remember the two terms: collision, coalesce, become bigger, then they will form. So before precipitation, these two activities are there. And due to electrostatic, when they don't leave the clouds, they accumulate. And this phenomenon is referred as cloud bursting. At least if we remember these terms, that is more than sufficient. Right. Now, when the sudden rainfall occurs, that leads to cloud bursting. And this cloud bursting leads to flash floods, which leads to flash floods. Large amount of water, when it moves down, we refer that as flash floods, which destroys entire settlements. This is some associated phenomenon. And in the context of India, Himalayas are vulnerable for cloud bursting because of their geographical characteristics. Is that clear? So please remember the definitions of cloud bursting. Now, what amount of rainfall we are talking about? So in the context of National Disaster Management Authority, they have given two criteria to define cloud bursting. Events associated with rainfall of 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters in an hour, 100 millimeters in an hour, or heavy rainfall in the mountain regions, which creates flash floods, damages property. We refer this as cloud bursting. So these two are the definitions of cloud bursting. Cloud bursting. Now, sometimes we find the rainfall is not that heavy. Take an example of the rainfall in Kerala. Sometimes the rainfalls in peninsula. Sometimes rainfall in peninsula region, where we find it is not that severe what we have received in Himalayas. So the 2019 rainfall in Kerala, in the Western Ghats, or in the peninsula regions, or sometimes in Rajasthan, which has experienced last year. So there we find the rainfall is there, but it is providing around 50 millimeters of rainfall in 2 hours. 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters of rainfall in 2 hours. We refer that as mini cloud bursting. We refer that as mini cloud bursting. So remember, in the cloud bursting, it is 100 millimeters per hour or 10 centimeters within an hour. Within an hour. Within 1 hour. And in mini cloud bursting, it should have 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters in 2 hours. In 2 hours. We refer that as Mini cloud bursting. Now, never make any confusion between cloud bursting and mini cloud bursting. In Kerala peninsulars and many areas, we find mini cloud bursting. Right. So these are the two terms: cloud bursting and mini cloud bursting. Then, impact of cloud bursting. What happens when the cloud bursting takes place? Now, the moment when the cloud bursting is there, you should remember flash floods will be there. Everything will be washed downward. Everything will be washed downwards. So it will create flash floods. Whenever heavy rainfalls are there, that will create landslide, soil erosion, or other events. Other events means subsidence of land. Subsidence of land. Plus, some areas when the landslides are there, if any electric poles are there, that can trigger short circuits. If any electric poles are there in the settlement areas, so that can trigger short circuit, and this in turn can create fire. So secondary events will be followed. Then affects other infrastructures, like it will affect the roads which are constructed there. It will affect the settlements, hydroelectricity projects, etc. Settlements, the projects like Vishnugada project, hydroelectricity projects. So it will damage those projects. Siltation of rivers. So high sedimentation will reach to the rivers. Sediments will reach to the rivers, which will make the siltation, where the rivers will become shallow. Then whenever heavy rainfalls are there, it will make huge impact on plants and animals. Plants and animals. Many wild animals are washed from that. Many wild animals are washed from that. Maybe from national parks or maybe from wildlife sanctuaries. Many animals will be washed from that. Right. Then it will affect the human settlements in the form of deaths and injuries. And it will always create socio-economic losses. It means that these areas, sometimes you may have agricultural fields, you may have certain hotels or resorts there, right? You may have certain types of small industries which have been set up there. So they all will have a loss when such impacts are there. Apart from that, it will also create psychological impact. Trauma will be there in the mind. So it will also have psychological impact. The fear will always be there. Take an example of the incidents of Uttarakhand floods. If you have seen the movie Kedarnath, it has visualized the 2013 floods which occurred in the Uttarakhand. And there many people have gone with trauma. Psychological impacts will be there. So that sudden amount of water will always have a fear in the local people. Those who have witnessed that, they will never forget that such events. So these are referred as the impacts of cloud bursting. Next is disaster risk reductions. Disaster risk reductions. Settlements where the human people will stay. And these are hydroelectricity projects. Hydro projects. Settlements where the people stay in the slopes of the mountains. Right. Now the disaster risk reduction. Now when we talk about disaster risk reduction of the cloud bursting, we have to always make early warning improvement. Why? Because the cloud bustings events, they always operate in small scope. So they always operate in small area. right? So whenever when we talk about they operate in the smaller perspective, it means that they operate in small area, and they always operate in the faster rates. Faster rates, right? Now here when we talk about the smaller areas, so generally we say around 100 millimeters of rainfall in 1 hour, around 20 to 30 square kilometers of area. 20 to 30 square kilometers of area. So it is operational scale is very small. So they operate at very small scale, right? So hence it is very difficult to make early warning system. Then next it talks about structural and non-structural measures. Now any disaster management, when you are writing, you should remember the two terms: structural measures and non-structural measures. Now what are structural measures and what are non-structural measures? So this should be kept always in any disaster management. Structural means engineering works. Engineering work or nature-based solution. Then non-structural, we have non-structural measures. Non-structural means non-engineering works. No, non-structural includes providing financial assistance called as budget allocation. It talks about policy, what type of policy you are using. It talks about awareness among the people. It talks about planning which has been done. So non-engineering types of works here. It talks about mock drills, preparation strategies. It talks about mapping and creating zonal maps. Mapping and creating zonal maps. Right. It also talks about capacity building to the people. Capacity building. Right. So all these areas we refer them as non-structural measure: budget, policy, awareness, innovation. So these are referred as non-structural measures. Now structural measures, they includes embankment. Embankment can be artificial and natural. Artificial, or it can be natural. Natural means we are talking about mangroves, etc. Or it talks about standards of the buildings, building codes. Building codes. Building codes which have to be maintained there, which has to be earthquake prone building or such types of buildings. So it means that we are talking about resilience there. Then dam construction should be strengthened. Strengthened or strong dam should be there. Creating shelters in that areas for accumulation of the people there, or planting more trees. Afforestation. Restoring of water bodies. Right. So all such of engineering works, etc., we refer them as structural measures. So any answer you are writing, you should remember structural measures, non-structural measures. Right. So please keep this in the mind. Structural and non-structural measures, they are very important. budgetary, leadership, awareness, planning, mock drills, they all are referred as non-structural measures. Embankment, building codes, dams, shelters, trees, where we find involvement of engineering activities are there. Engineering activities are there. We refer that as structural measures. Structural measures. Is that clear? So please remember these. Now, structural and non-structural measures. In the context of cloud bustings also, we find the same part, right? Policies, budgeting and all. Structural measures includes about planting the trees, afforestation activities. So here structural measures includes afforestation. It talks about strengthening the dams, right? It means control a landslide, controlling the landslides, right? So all these are examples of the structural measures. Non-structural measures means awareness, mapping of the landslide areas. So we refer them as non-structural measures. Then next is rescue and rehabilitation. I told what is rehabilitation. So here also we should make effective rescue and rehabilitation. Coordination training. This coordination should be done with different institution. Different institution. Coordination with different departments. Department. Coordination between different ministries. Different ministry. So there should be a proper coordination, institutional, department wise, different ministries. And training should be given to the local people. Training to local people about first aid, about basic necessities. Basic necessity. So that they can put their expertise in rescue and rehabilitation. Rescue and rehabilitation. Right. And apart from that, we also have National Disaster Response Force. Response force. And these response forces, they also provide the basic training to the local people, which will create awareness. Right. So these are the disaster risk reductions which are required in the cloud bursting. Now, early warning system improvement is very, very important. And at present, we are having Doppler radar systems. At present, we are having Doppler weather radar systems. Now, these radar systems, they calculate, they identify, they monitor the wind pattern. They monitor the wind pattern. And based on that, based on the wind pattern, their speed, their direction, etc., they can be beneficial in defining the rainfall pattern in that. So they can be beneficial in defining rainfall in that area, rainfall or precipitation on that area based on wind patterns, their speed, etc. So at present, we are having these Doppler radars in these. We need to increase them. It means we have to make effective early warning system. Effective early warning systems are there. And that is the reason why in the year 2024, we are making effort to have a satellite based one, which can provide more information on that, like the NISAR, which is proposed maybe end of this month or next month it will be launched. And this NISAR is collaboration of ISRO and NASA. ISRO and NASA. And this is referred as NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar. Synthetic aperture radar. Now, the unique thing about this is it can peer the clouds and nights. It can pass through the clouds and nights. It can peer or it can pass through the clouds and also during the nights. So it means it means that it provides more visibility. And this is something which we refer that as advanced technology, called as cutting edge technology. It uses cutting edge technology, which makes it to penetrate through the clouds and also during the nights, which gives more information, about the mountains, information about the mountains, information about the glacier. It can give information about the cloud bursting. It can be very important in giving certain data about earthquake or cyclones, etc. Cyclones, etc. So it is something which is referred as cutting edge technology. So this will create effectiveness in cloud bursting. So this will help in effective management. Effective management. Apart from that, we also have many apps, mobile apps, from which we can disseminate the rainfall patterns. We can disseminate something about that. So this is something which you have to remember. Making awareness or improving the early warning systems. Improving the early warning system. So this is the first stage. We refer that as early warning improvement. So at present, we are having radar system. So we have to focus on this. So maybe next month, when the NISAR is launched, then we may have cutting edge technology which can enhance the study of cloud bursting. Right. Next, landslides and glacial avalanches. Now, the moment when we say landslides, so these landslides are seen in all mountains of India and also plateaus. And the moment when you talk about landslides, in a very simple term, it is any high elevated area from where if big rocks or soil is moving downward. So it is the transfer of rock debris or soils, rocks, debris or soils from high mountains downwards. From high mountains downwards, under the influence of gravity. Under influence of gravity. We refer that as landslide. Right? And this is one type of mass wasting. It is one type of mass wasting. Generally, where rock debris and soils move downward. Rock debris and soils move downward. So we refer that as landslides. And these landslides, They accelerate during monsoon season. So these landslides, they accelerate during monsoon. Whenever heavy rainfalls are there, landslides will accelerate. Plus, due to large amount of vegetation which is removed. So loss of vegetation. So when the vegetation is removed there, maybe by deforestation, etc. So we always find the landslides accelerates. So these landslides, we say them, they are natural, but they are accelerated by man-made activities. Accelerated by man-made activities. So hence landslide is a classical example of socio-natural hazard. So it is an example of socio-natural hazard. And I have explained what is socio-natural hazard. I've explained you what is socio-natural hazard, right? So this is some rough idea about landslide. Now, in the context of India, 12% of the geographical area in India is vulnerable for landslide. Is vulnerable for landslides, and the Himalayan mountains are vulnerable for glacial avalanches. The Himalayas are vulnerable for glacial avalanches. So glacial avalanches means when the glacier falls with high velocities. When the glacier from top of mountain falls with high velocities or moves with high velocity. High velocity, somewhere around 60 kilometers per hour. It can reach up to 120 kilometers per hour, which can make huge loss, which can create a disaster. And this glacial avalanches have increased due to global warming and climate change. They have increased because of global warming and climate change. Because of melting of the glacier, they are moving very fast as their melting rates have increased. So we find they have been seen. Landslide accelerate monsoon. I say that these landslides are accelerated due to monsoon. So these landslides are accelerated due to monsoon. Landslide will never accelerate monsoon. Right. So landslide will never accelerate monsoon. These landslides will accelerate due to monsoon. When heavy rainfalls are there, landslides accelerate. Right. Now avalanches, rapid moving. So this is something which we refer that as ice avalanche. Sometimes only debris will fall, or sometimes rock avalanches will be there. Avalanche means moving very fast. In many news, we come across that Indian soldiers were trapped in the avalanche in Sikkim. Indian soldiers were trapped in the avalanche in the Uttarakhand. So we find such types of impacts are there. Now, this is the definition of landslide. Any definition you can use. And this happens during the monsoon activities or man-made factors. So generally we say landslide is a socio-natural hazard where we find anthropogenic factors or man-made factors have accelerated the landslides. So what are land-led or man-made factors? They are deforestation, they are overgrazing, They talk about construction activities there. Construction activities on the slopes of mountains, agricultural activities, and these agriculture are unscientific one. Agricultural, like shifting cultivation. Shifting cultivation. So these all are referred as, see, landslides are found in the mountain areas. It's not about coastal or something. Landslide means high elevated area from where the rock debris fall. Right. So it is dominant in any regions. It can be in the Himalayas or it can be in the plateau regions also. So it is about the movement of debris under the influence of gravities. Under the influence of gravities. Deforestation, overgrazing, construction activities, agriculture, mining activities. So these are referred as man-made factors for the landslides. Is that clear? So hence they are referred as socio-natural hazard. In the beginning, I told socio-natural hazard is a type of hazard where human involvement accelerates the natural hazards. Where human involvement accelerates the natural hazard. So landslide is one such example. Now, what are the reason for landslides? What are the reason for landslides? So mass wasting is again your geography term. When bulk of the rocks, bulk of the soils, when they move downward from the mountain under the influence of gravity, we refer that as mass wasting. This is your physical geography. In physical geography, mass wasting is defined as bulk of the soil, bulk of the rocks, bulk of the debris, when they move from mountain areas downward, we refer them as mass wasting. So this mass wasting can be very high or it can be very slow. If it is very speed, then we refer that as landslide or rock fall, or sometimes it is very, very slow, right? No reason for landslides. Now, geology of area. Now, this is mainly associated with Himalayas. In the Himalayas. Now, in the Himalayas, we find what geological factors are associated with landslide. The Himalayas are, they are the mountains which are formed where Indian plate collided with the Eurasian plate. So it is a region where we refer them as it is the boundaries of the two plates. And hence it is vulnerable for earthquake. So this creates earthquake. And this earthquake can trigger landslide. That is one. Second one is Indian plate is still moving downward. Indian plate is still moving downward. This is Indian plate and this is Eurasian plate. So Indian plate is still grinding beneath Eurasian plate. Indian plate is still grinding beneath the Eurasian plate. And according to Disaster Management Authority, it is moving at the rate, according to National Disaster Management Authority, it is moving at the rate of 5 centimeters per year. Indian plate is grinding beneath the Eurasian plate at 5 centimeters per year. And this creates friction. And that friction creates landslides. So this is due to friction. Third one is the steep slopes of Himalayas. So generally when we talk about the Himalayas, so we are having steep slopes towards India. Steep slopes towards India because of their characteristics. So wherever steep slopes are there, so they are most vulnerable for landslides. So these are associated with Himalayas. Now, apart from that, the common are shifting cultivation and faulty agriculture practices. Right. So this will destroy the vegetation, which destroy vegetation. And wherever vegetations are removed, then that region will always vulnerable for soil erosion or land erosion. Deforestation activities. Now, deforestation activities is nothing but cutting up of trees or removing the trees for different activities. Now, whenever deforestation is done, the soil holding capacity decreases. The soil or rock holding capacity of mountain decreases. So hence it becomes vulnerable for landslides. Then construction, mining activities and overloading. Thus we have seen in the context of the landslides which is seen in Uttarakhand. In the Uttarakhand. Right. Where construction of the roads, construction of hydroelectricity projects, and also overloading population settlements, which is unable to keep them where carrying capacity exceeds. So this is also responsible for large amount of landslides, and this is very predominantly seen in the regions of Kumaon Garhwal region, Kumaon and Garhwal region of Uttarakhand. Right. Then overgrazing in that areas. Mainly we refer that as transhumance activities. That is temporary movement of the farmers, pastoral communities along with their livestock resources. Then heavy rainfall during the monsoon. So they also create huge impact. So during the monsoon. Now last one is undercutting of the rivers in Himalayas. Now what is this undercutting of the Himalayas? Now generally in the Himalayas we have the mountains, right? So mountains are there. So here we find the rivers are moving in this area. So these are the rivers which are traveling here. Now these rivers, they always have the capacity to cut the mountains. Erosion is there. So in this area, they will erode. Erosion takes place here. So after the erosion, so this much of area is removed. And this land is like hanging here. So this much of area is covered by the river. Right. Now this is called as undercutting. Now this upper portion, it will not have any support. This is the upper portion which will not have a support. It will collapse and move downward. Upper portion will collapse and move downward. And this is what we refer that as undercutting of the rivers, which will make the collapsing of the upper areas. Right. So remember that undercutting of rivers in the Himalayas. So here the rivers, when they move, the upper portion, as they do not have the support, they fall downward. Is it clear? So this is something which we refer them as reason for the landslides there. Right. Now that is the reason why when we say the Himalayas Chardham project is more controversial. It is more controversial, where environmentalists are still opposing that. But Indian government says that we are making that as an infrastructural aspect of security strategic point, because that is a region where we find the Chinese portions are there in the neighboring areas. So we need a speedy movement of the vehicles during any type of aggression or any type of the impact of Chinese aggression in that area. So government of India has given its point of references that we need a widthier roads, so that strategically they are very important for the movement of the military vehicles. So that is one point. Second, they say that they wanted to create all weather connectivity to the four pilgrimage points there, and that is where we need to construct this. So environmentalists are opposing this on their part, and the government of India says that it is with reference to security concern and also providing all weather connectivity. And based on that, Supreme Court has given direction to go ahead with that, and based on that they have started working on the Char Dham project, and it is almost all in the verge of completion of their project. Right. Now, if you see the vulnerability of India, 0.18 million squares in the northeastern part. So here, if we take the region, 0.18 million square in the northeastern part of India, then it says that 0.14 millions in the northwestern part of India. It is in the northwestern part of India. Then it talks about 0.9 million in the Western Ghats. In the Western Ghats. It also says in the Eastern Ghats, Araku in Himalayas, Eastern Ghats. In the Eastern Ghats. So this is vulnerability of India's landslide. Vulnerability of India's landslide. Is that clear? So please keep this in the mind. And the landslide prone Himalaya has classified that into zone 4 and zone 5. It means this is associated with earthquake, and this earthquake is triggering more amount of landslides in the Himalayan region. In the Himalayan region. Is that clear? So this is about landslides. Is that clear? Right. So I hope it is clear, Bhimrai, regarding the fragile. So such questions we can expect in the UPSC. When we say, yes, Himalayas are fragile, but government says that we need internal security. We need the security also, that we need a sustainable development. We need economic development, all weather connectivity. And also we need safety, strategic areas. So that's why in the strategic areas, they need the free movement of vehicles. So both are correct. Both are correct on their part. Right, so such opinion-based questions will be asked in UPSC. So both are correct. Government is also correct on its path, and environmentalists are also correct on their path. That this is a sensitive area. Kumaon Gadwal is a sensitive area. But why you are taking such type of activities? Government stand is something which says that we need to have strategic. They say that if borders are not secure, then what you will take about the internal part. This is not only in your mains, sometimes application based questions will be asked in your prelims. They can be in your prelims, and many questions you can find in the mains. See here, whatever topics I am covering in the disaster management, many are there which are based in your geography, which will help you in writing your prelims questions. And also the other part, I'm not only taking only disaster, I'm taking the geography linkage with that. Right. Now, the nodal agencies with reference to the landslide management in India, right? So here you should remember that Geological Survey of India, please keep this in the mind. Geological Survey of India is associated with coordinating and undertaking geological studies for landslide hazard mitigation, to carry landslide hazard zonation, and also for monitoring. Hazard zonation means creating a map. Creating a hazard zonation map here. So nodal agencies, Geological Survey of India. Right. Now, factual one. Now next, when we talk about the landslide management, so it talks about the data to be done, calculation of the data. It talks about risk, it also talks about crisis. For risk, you need to have all the data of previous one. So you have to collect the data which are previous. Just understand the definition of risk management. Understanding the risk and mitigate them. Understanding the risk and mitigate them. When you are unable to mitigate that, then you should take on crisis management. So crisis means shelter construction, medical facilities, etc. So it talks about emergency and preparedness. It talks about public awareness. So generally, it talks about both structural as well as non-structural measure. Right. So remember, this landslide management, it talks about the continuum, disaster management continuum. Now, what is this continuum? Continuum talks about three phases: pre-disaster, at the time, and post-disaster. Pre, at the time, and post-disaster. Now, in the pre-disaster, it talks about mitigation, adaptation. It talks about preparedness, mitigation, and adaptation. Please remember that. And in the post-disaster, it talks about resettlement, rehabilitation. If you remember these terms, then you can write very good in the context of your disaster management. Is it clear? So please remember these things. This is a flow chart. If you remember this flow chart, then you can elaborate this point. Whatever I discussed in the beginning of the disaster management, same you can apply here. Now, next, early warning systems. Now, here you should remember we have to increase early warning system. We have to improve the early warning system. We have to improve the early warning system. Now, at present, we are working very significantly on improving the early warning system. And generally, this early warning system is done into two parameters. One is it is done at site specific. And second one is it is done at the region specific. Site specific and region specific, right? So site specific warning model is introduced, and here it is done in larger areas, to study about the existing, study about the previous landslides and predict them for future. Predict the future, because when the landslides, the pattern of landslides are not same. Landslide patterns change from one place to another place. Landslide patterns, they always change from one place to another. Reasons may be different because geology is not the same. They always change. The geology is not same, slope is not same, economic activities are not same. So hence these landslide patterns also changes from place to place. Place to place, because the nature of the slope is not same. Some areas steep slopes are there, some area gentle slopes are there. So hence they always vary from one place to another place. So hence a systematic study is required. So we take them as site specific, and within that we make an effort in studying them in smaller areas, right? So here we talk about certain important places which they have taken. Now, last year they have they have started working on two important places, one in Tamil Nadu and one is in West Bengal. In Tamil Nadu, they have taken Nilgiris. In Tamil Nadu, they have taken Nilgiris for a case study and study. And in the context of West Bengal, they have taken Darjeeling for the study. Darjeeling in West Bengal to study a region specific. Reading them, understanding them, why they change from place to place. Nilgiris is in Peninsula, Darjeeling is in Himalayas. So the landslides in the Himalayas are different from the landslides which takes place in the Western Ghats. Please understand that. So they are making a systematic study of that. Darjeeling is in Himalayas. It is in Himalaya. And Nilgiris are in the peninsular part, where the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats meet. Eastern Ghat and Western Ghat. So the meeting point of Eastern Ghats and Western Ghat is called as Nilgiri. So we are making effort to read because these landslides are not uniform. They always change from place to place. Himalayan landslides are not same as what we see in the peninsular part. So hence, a systematic study is required here. Is it clear? Now, preparedness. Because we don't have proper early warning system, so we have to make a proper preparedness. It can be with reference to mitigation, right? Or we have to prepare capacities of the local people so that the impacts are reduced. And this is something which we refer them as risk management. Risk management. Then we talk about something called as landslide zonation map. So creating a map, and this map is created by Geological Survey of India. Geological Survey of India. Then following the guidelines which are given by National Disaster Management Authority. We'll discuss what it says. We'll discuss the guidelines of National Disaster Management Authority, and then structural and non-structural measures. So the same thing, structural, non-structural measures. This will be followed in all the disaster management. So that's why I have explained them separately. Structural and non-structural measures. So please read them, and based on the disaster, you fix them, which structural measures are required here, which types are seen here. Now, when we talk about zonation map, and here also the early warning system remains the same, radar systems, and we have to improve that. Right? So we have to improve these. Because landslide, one of the reason is heavy rainfall. Landslide, one of the heavy reason is, right? Okay. Now landslide zonation map. Now this landslide zonation map, it makes the data about the potential areas, which classifies them into high hazard, low hazard, and these. Now the reason behind zonation map is that it will identify the degrees of vulnerability. Degrees of vulnerability. Degrees of vulnerability of landslides. Then second thing is, once you identify the areas with different zones, you can avoid or restrict the settlements. We can avoid or restrict the settlements. You can tell the people not to settle there. And once we do the zonation, you can regulate the economic activities. You can regulate or restrict economic activities in that area. Now, what type of economic activities? Like construction, hydroelectricity projects. So you can restrict them, any projects, etc. You can stop them. Then once you identify that area which is vulnerable, you can plan for afforestation. You can plan for afforestation. It means where you can plant more trees, where you can plant more trees, by which the landslides impact can be reduced. So hence, this landslide zonation mapping plays a very important role. It plays a very important role, which identifies the degrees of vulnerability, which can help us to avoid or restrict the settlements, restrict the economic activities, and also where the deforestation has occurred, you plant more trees in that areas. So these are the important advantages of landslide mapping. And in the context of India, we have already done the mapping. We have already completed that. So only small area is left out in the northeastern. So this is completed, right? So 90% is completed. It is to create a dynamic national landslide susceptibility to prepare geographical information center, GIS, right, to prepare nationwide repository. And these all three will help in understanding the nature of landslide, help in settlements, restricting the activities in that areas. So these are something which you have to remember in the context of the disaster management with reference to landslides. So tomorrow we'll take up guidelines for landslide and avalanches. We'll take up guidelines for landslide and avalanches. Please revise them, read them carefully. If you read them, then the things will become very easy, or else it becomes very, very difficult. West Bengal is in the east and Darjeeling is in the north. How? See, when we talk about the Darjeeling part is a part of Himalaya or not? When we say Darjeeling is a part of Himalaya or not? Right. So this Darjeeling is a case study where we have to make a reference to understanding the regions and how they are being done. Okay, regarding the PPTs, I'll inform them because that is the only best thing which I can tell, because there is a separate team which is working on that. I'm concerned with the teaching and all those. So anything which is concerned with the teaching and all, I can be there. But regarding this PPT and other parts, 100% I'll communicate them, and I'll tell them to make sure that these things are not being done continuously. So they will help out in reaching that. So maybe certain technical issues might be there. I'll ask them to restructure, reformat, and send you them again in the form of PPTs. See, whenever when you're making notes on that, I have giving or I am being giving you with the basics, the criterias and all. So follow the PPTs, make the definitions carefully, read them, and make basics, reasons for that, impacts of that, and how they have to be mitigated. So keep the PPT as your skeleton, and whatever basics I've given, you read them and then you have to fix them with your notes making part. Right. So this is what best I can tell. I can communicate and I can tell them to have the perspective of the classes. So again, when you talk about the notes and all, Isha, don't worry, another 2 days are there. You go with that. You go with that. So whatever basics I'm teaching, you have to take the basics from your geography, NCRT books. And apart from that, something which is missed, you can Google and take a reference of that. Don't read bulky books. You keep the PPTs, take the basics, and update that with terminologies. Your vocabularies are very, very important. Flowcharts are very good. Flowcharts are very, very good. So if you keep flowcharts, that will be very, very important. And always when you talk about point wise, so point wise you should make your notes, and flowchart you should use in your examination, right? So while making the notes in the beginning, you use the points. While revising, use the flowcharts, and in your examination, use flowcharts. And this flowcharts will make sure that your time management is done effectively, right? So you should read the data. That's what I'm telling you. Read the content and make notes. So one time you are done reading, then after that you have to revise that. You have to revise that continuously. So while making the first notes, you make elaboration of the notes. Then when you are making revision and making second notes, you cut short them, and reduce them from 100 words to 20 words. That's how you have to make your notes. So 3 times, 4 times, you have to read them, write them, rewrite them, revise them. Then only you will get the perfection. Is it clear? Now, today's class ends up. So tomorrow we'll meet up again at the same time, morning 7 a.m. 6 a.m. we'll meet up. Right. Thank you. So regarding my mail ID, I have told them, so they will share the mail ID to you.